Alright, abusia yemu bibi akwaba na yemfa ambra Mega TV and platform way eso. Abusia Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association and I'm no kase o ma call it off their strike. Na ni na ni say about 2 weeks ago and ankofo isha sese omo e the strike chichirinchi e hihye so. Abusia omo the strike ni hihye so nipa dodo omo wuye enye nipa ketwa wate ase. Nsia na yete se maame na odi animu no akọ Philippines ekwaji okwaji position by no na nakoma to de ma wakwale off the strike na we na Alan Kwadu Chairman Solomon Owusu e de ba abontin so no de eto da bi a ye use word bi ti say essential workers ono ohunu say nobody in this country and nobody under this planet and now on this planet under this sun and I was calling as essential worker because say anya doctor sebi teacher ni eni ho because oyare obewu sanso na anya teacher ni anka doctor ni ho na cleaner no so a owo doctor no office no so kona ho afia ontimi nye adwuma ni nyeye enti obia ye sebi eburu sebi nya ado obia essential worker obia hu hia. When we start calling some people essential workers and now some occupations essential workers or essential professionals, honor na omo sha say omo busy, omo misbehave, omo ye nneema bia ense emfata. Ebi ni de ye hu ni na no strike omo de hihye so manipa ewu kwai. Enti Solomon Owusu a oye Alan Kwadu Chairman senior member in the movement for change no. So no de sansem ni nneema kikakika no. We senior one we essential worker in we hu hia chi obi ni we no omunjai yentie we our Pan African TV so African TV so allergy and allergy and all the two yentie nsi ni bia ko bebeto aso.
As for Doc, I told you that they made a mistake by not retaining Matanya Swetum. But our movement, which is metamorphosing to political party, will consider him. Because that is the only way out. That we will fill him as a parliamentary candidate. And you would understand it. Today is what? The 14th of June. Mark today's date. The future will be so clear for them. Comrade, good morning. Yes. Sana, what are we discussing? Nurses strikes. I mean, I'm happy that you started with the two medical doctors. You see, when the matter is home, they want to scratch the faces. Because, like they say in Tree, it's very difficult to separate their line of duty and also, I mean, saying it as it is. Because if you don't say it well today, tomorrow someone will play your tape for you to, as it were, appreciate. But unfortunately for that, I am not a medical person, so I am free to go. You understand me? These nurses and their strike, in all humility, in all truthfulness, is something that should never have happened. It should never have happened because of the way and manner they themselves carry themselves. You go and negotiate conditions of service as far back as 2024 May. It was to be implemented in July of 2024. Now, for some strange reasons, but make no mistake that it was the Professional Association of Psychiatric Nurses that sat down and said, oh, you will go to court and spend 7 months for the conditions not to be implemented. Then you believe 2024 was an election year. A government going into a major election that didn't want to hear or have anything to do with industrial actions to affect its chances goes to agree on funeral grants, height and death height and death allowance. Hey, Senator, this is the first time hearing about height and death too. That when someone is on the first floor, takes 2.8 sedated pesos as a daily risk allowance. You move to the third floor, it moves to 4 sedated pesos. You move to then those in Bed Khalifa. You know Bed Khalifa in Dubai? It's about 100.
Then that does not apply to them.
Who told you? It's part of the negotiation. They are all part of the nest. We are discussing their conditions of service. Who is a nest in this negotiation? They went there as a union. So everybody in the equation is catered for. Is that the case? And it is the reason they are on strike. So let's discuss it. No, don't let anybody come and deceive you here. We are talking about conditions of service. Height and death allowance, because of that, they are home. Funeral grant allowance, they are home. 13th month allowance or salary, they are home. I'm a surveyor by profession. I'm supposed to renew my license every year. I don't remember the last time I went to government to go and pay for my renewal license. Because of that, they stayed home. People died. In any case, even whilst they are dying, we are dying. So that issue of when they go on strike, people are dying, is also something that I don't want to hear. But even when the doctors are there, they will do their best, their part. The nurses, they will do their part. But we will still die. Today that they are returning, we are still going to die. Death is part of human race. So a new government has come to meet these conditions. You need to judge with them so that all the issues that were agreed, the conditions of service that were agreed with the previous administration is implemented smoothly. This business of one, I've heard UTAG also threatening. Everybody is threatening. We are going to go strike. Everybody must strike. And then if the country collapses, are we going to live in Botswana? We will live in it. The least provocation, we are striking. So I can tell you without any shred of doubt that the decision that by the Professional Association of Psychiatric Nurses to take the mother body to court was not just accident, but it was political. The party then was being smart to prevent them from rolling out, because they were supposed to, as it were, implement these conditions of service as far back as July. But guess what? They were able to settle their matters in January of 2025. Mark the dates. We have been told by Nana Kumia, you remember, that the NPP got to know that they will lose election 2024 as far back as January. So if I am going by what Nana Kumia said, that the party NPP knew of his defeat in 2024, we are all doing politics. Why do you think Gufo left single salary structure to Professor Mills? You set the trap and you leave it. They do a program, they call it National Science and Maths Quiz. They say problem of the day. They will give you the problem. Come and solve it. But I believe that one of the things that this NDC administration didn't do was towards giving those ranking members at the time that they were in opposition ministerial appointments in the very same ministries. You understand? Because then it becomes a text for tat. And that is the problem Akando is facing. Because you spoke a lot in opposition. So if they are going to play back your own words, your own deeds in the same ministry. There was a reason why in the year 2001, President Kofo never appointed Dr. Richard Allen to the health ministry. Because he has spoken extensively on that sector. So to us it was save him and save the government. Where did he send him to? Rose. You can't come and accuse him there. So going forward, if President Obama will listen to advice, these are some of the things that can easily work against your administration. When you have had vociferous people in opposition opposing the other side, and you are now the substantive minister, how are you going to survive there? It's not a good strategy. you get my point. But everything about this strike is politically motivated. Take it from me. Look, the president, I don't want to go on this tangent of the husband is a weak argument who chooses someone's partner in life. He said, today I met a beautiful lady in town, and then I decided to, as it were, speak to the family and then marry there, and tomorrow she becomes the president of the Ghana Registered Nurses Association. What has that got to do with strike? Her own utterances is what you can use to judge whether this is politically motivated or not. In 2022, I heard they say that the conditions prevailing in the economy was such that there was no way the government could have met their conditions of service. They fought. These are, I'm paraphrasing here. So we fought. But when the evidence is so clear, you can't do anything about it. So they accepted government's position. What is the difference in today's situation? When labor itself accepted 10% increment, we all know that we are in a difficult situation. So as a country, we must do our best to move it to a stage where all of us can get what we demand. Workers pretend to be working, employers pretend to be paying. That is what we find, how we find ourselves. It's not rocket science, it's garbage in, garbage out. It's what the economy is churning out. That is what is shared or spread across board. Our economy is not that robust. And to that extent, when we begin to bring in examples of the UK and the US and Botswana, then you must also be prepared to answer the other aspects of the economy, whether it relates to our economy. We are at par. And if it is the going out or the mass exodus of our health professionals as a result of the better conditions outside, then I'm sure there shouldn't be any single person living in this country as a medical person or a nurse, because our conditions across board are not the best. I even have an issue with singling certain institutions out as essential service providers. It's misleading. The nurse needs a driver, a taxi driver, to move him or her to the hospital. Without that person moving the nurse to the hospital, that nurse will never get to the hospital. So the day that when GPI2 strikes, you see the impact on the economy, but we never consider them as essential service. I was on a set with another communicator who was saying that, look, during COVID, we saw how the nurses suffered. I said, you must be joking. I'm a transporter. But for our intervention, they couldn't have survived. So if you classify nurses as essential service providers and leave transporters as not essential, then where are you coming from, the Mars or the moon? In any case, when you get to the hospital, the cleaner, if the cleaner does not clean the hospital and it smells, nobody could stay there and work. The carpenter has to provide the chairs. So in every economy, you must treat every service as essential. You would have gotten it right from the beginning. Look, as far back as 29th of May 2025, the Ghana Registered Nurses Association wrote to the Labour Commission expressing their intentions of going on embarking on an industrial action, that is strike. 30th of May 2025, the Labour Commission wrote back to them and said, look, hold on. We don't want to have any industrial arrest. For that matter, let's all meet on the 4th of June 2025 and resolve these matters amicably. When did they embark on their strike action? 2nd of June. So do you, from what I'm recounting, do you think they had any good faith or intentions towards these whole actions? You realized that the Labour Commission had something to do with it, so you wrote to them. They also wrote back that, hold on the 4th of June, all of us will meet. Then on the 2nd, you embark on strike. On the 4th, the Ministry of Health, the Ghana Health Service, the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, and the Ministry of Finance met. They called all the executives of the Ghana Registered Nurses Association, and none of them could pick the phone. Some even off their phones. Total disrespect. You say the woman is saying what? Disinformation, propaganda. If anybody has done propaganda with this strike, it's the executives. We must not be using our unions as a Ponzi scheme. And that reminds me of the Ghana Bar Association. The way and manner they behaved initially with the Tokono issue. You remember? Their first response, when the General Secretary of the Ghana Bar Association was asked, what is the position of the Ghana Bar Association? He said, and I'm paraphrasing, that look, up to the time he was speaking, the president had behaved within the confines of the constitution. And so they have nothing to say about it. They would rather encourage the president to respect the laws of the land, and which he was doing. Then they started striking at them. They met at the Labadi Beach Hotel on a very fine Saturday like this. Said, have you been to the Labadi Beach Hotel before on Saturday? You don't go to these places. DJ Black plays on Saturday. All the beautiful music. Go there today. They met, ate, chilled. When they came back, they said the government had goofed. They were going to court. So when you behave like this, do you want me to say that you are not politically inclined? And that is exactly what the Ghana resident nurses have done. They are saying that what the actions, they know the actions leads to a death of people. Didn't they know that before they embarked on it? They were exposed. Then they have been exposed. So there is nowhere to hide. You want to meet the parliamentary select committee on what? Health. Except because by virtue of meeting them, you have what? Called off your strike. Is the salaries or the the conditions of service going to be paid by the parliamentary select committee? The body mandated. Finance Ministry will release money, fair wages and salaries will negotiate salaries. Ministry of Health, the employer, and Ghana Health, they were waiting for you to deal with the very issue you took to Parliament. You refused. You refused. When you realize that your strike has been unpopular, you just decided to go and hide behind, what do you call it, the Parliamentary Select Committee on what? Health, and say, oh, because of what we discussed with them, we are calling off. That is total hogwash. Look, if you don't tell people our peace of mind in this country, they will take all of us for a ride. They will take all of us for a ride. Go to our various hospitals and see the sort of treatments that these nurses who today are calling for funeral grants, they give to our mothers. The last time my mother went to hospital, the cheek of it, a young nurse, an elderly person, what can she do? Disrespecting left, right, center. Then when you are there, you say we should give you 13th month allowance because you did well by disrespecting the very person who comes to the hospital to pay. Today, what they do when they are on duty, then they are on live Facebook, TikTok, they are twerking and everything. At the hospital, some of them are even doing praises when the patient needs that peace of mind. All this is because the public, we don't complain. Go to our major hospital, you need to pay the nurse before they even lead you. But our society, we know the truth, but we want to hide. We want to hide. Tools allowance. So now they say tools allowance. So I don't know whether the tools is this country. But you see, it calls for a total review of the conditions of service across board. We need to go back and realign what we do. I think we handle issues with a knee-jerk reaction. Especially in election years, the government of the day is afraid. They will gaslight you. Oh, if you don't do this, our members will vote against you. So they go and accept everything. That's why I'm saying that the government, the SY administration, they were very smart. They agreed, but they made sure that it will not be implemented by hiding behind the PAPNG for 7 months. Now it is your turn to implement. You see the way they are going about the infra center. And this is not good for us. So if they have called it off, already we are dying. We welcome them back, but they must put up a very good attitude. They must not come and behave the way and manner they have been behaving in the past. Because they are living with us. Every profession matters in this country. Every profession. We must not look down upon other professions. You see, it has eaten into our moral fabric that, look, when you go to our various campuses, I remember when I was on KNUST campus. Those that were doing medicine never respected those that were doing biomedical science, biology, and so on and so on. They said they are all rejected souls. You go to University of Ghana and see those that are reading law. They don't respect others. And I ask myself, where from this thinking? If the farmer does not go to the farm to farm for food to come, this morning as I came here, I've been offered malt. You think without this I'll survive? They were thanking journalists. Is that not the case? For what?
Said for putting their issues
Absolutely. Out. Why didn't they put their own issues out? So it means your role was so critical. But when was the last time journalists went on strike? Your conditions of service, have you exposed to the general public? Ghana Police Service, go and see their conditions of service. The army, all of us are in the same boat. And that is why as a country, the issue of corruption must be dealt with head on. Yesterday, did you listen to the Attorney General? People still in this country without looking at their height, at least still according to the size of your height or the length of your height, they're still beyond their heights. A small institution called the National Service Authority, but even the figure that was put out there is a conservative figure. That 548 million, they go and steal, and when you are an innocent person contesting in your small constituency, they use that money to come and depose you. Ill-gotten wealth, ghost names. Hey, increasing returns. In 2018 to 2019, they stole 25 million. In 2020, they were sympathetic towards. They reduced it to 21 million. Then they shot it up. Election year 2020 to 55 million. Then when they realized that the Ghanaian was gullible, because after stealing all this money, you renewed our mandate in 2020, they moved it to 61 million, and 2023 crowded, that was it, 350 million. And they came back to their senses, bringing it down to 32 million. These are the issues. This is why the reason why the Ghana Resident Nurses Association must strike. That why is it that few people who hold this country to ransom, and this is only the national service? Look at the people that are going to be prosecuted. Asibe, where was Asibe coming from? He was the former mayor of KMA. So if he could come and do this, it means he did worse at KMA. But the Ghana Audit Service, that institution must be scrapped. Where have they been all these years? Every year you claim to be doing auditing. So you mean to tell me that when you go and do your auditing, you don't see anything? That institution, who watches the watchman? Who audits the audit service? Who audits them? By now, traces the Ministry of the Attorney General's department must begin to go back to KMA and audit them the period that Osasime was the mayor there. You see, Mustafa, I said the time with that number here. Akufo-Addo, when you steal, then he rewards you more. From the national service, where did they move him to? Please allow. We are doing this today. We will do it together. Always you come and sit here. You'll be watching us. You don't want your voice to come in. He was, as it were, moved to the Ministry of what? Youth and Sports. Ghana was going to just Cote d'Ivoire here. It's about 30 minutes by air to just go and play all Africa Cup of Nations. We were eliminated in the first round. This gentleman came back and told us that we expended $3 million. Hey! As if that was not enough. 13th All Africa Games. You remember 13th All Professor Amin Alassa, whatever you are, that man deserves a national award. You remember when he exposed the Eswal administration, that the GBC only took $105,000. Meanwhile, in the budget, they claim they had paid $3 million to the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. How can we be so wicked? Now they told us that they cooking alone. for Egyptians cooking watch and I'm perceived for the Egyptians, Ethiopians, they expended $15 million. But the two and the wife did the cooking. Tax journalists, when you are going on a program, this paper just write your name, send a number. Solomon Owusu. Small thing, then you put a frame on it. Even Olympic Games in France, for the whole world, the entire world, they expended only 700,000 euro. Ghana here, all Africa Games 13th edition, we expended $4.6 million on tax, according to Yusuf Mustafa. University of Ghana sports stadium, Kofo had done it to about 84% or so. We were left 16% to complete. That's the Titan tracks and some few fixtures and fittings. The gentleman looked straight into you and me, our faces, and told us that he expended $34 million to complete it. Meanwhile, Takwa Sports Stadium, newly built stadium, but Goldfish Ghana costed $13 million. This country, why are we like this? Why? What wrong did we commit? Renovation, 3 halls, Elizabeth say, Liman, Kwapon, that stretch. It's a hall that is already occupied. You only fixed air condition. This man told us they expended $16 million to do that. Because he has succeeded at the the National Service Secretariat, he was emboldened. And those faceless people who are the presidency, who also enjoy the booty, Mr. Attorney General, don't look at it on the surface. They couldn't have enjoyed this booty without the connivance of the presidency. Take it from me. From the office of the president and the vice president, investigate. I have said NAPCO. You remember NAPCO? There was no way, nobody can convince me that they were paying 100,000 people every month. Do you believe that? But national service alone should tell you that figure is padded. Oh yes, my brother. You didn't get some, that's why. They brought money to come and remove you from that place. But you will go back, inshallah. On our take it. The new patriotic party will not see the need. But you see, all these things has happened in this country. And the nurses and other professionals, UTAD is not concerned about it. All you hear is that book allowance. No. You must be demonstrating on some of these issues. And the youth of this country must be angry enough that your future is being toiled. We were told growing up that we must go to school, burn the midnight candle, go to the university. When we are done, you will get jobs to do. And a lot of people have first degree, masters, PhD. They are home. These people only come 2 days, 3 days. They are filthy rich. They build everywhere. See the apartments springing up everywhere. It's not for these Lebanese and Indians that you see them. They are going to hide behind them and they are putting it up. And they will come and tell you and I, our children, that their parents were smart. They say smart working. Stealing from the state is smart working. And that is why you see a lot of people, young ones, now they want to enter into politics. When you ask them, what is your ideology? They don't have anything. All they know is that when I come into politics, by a year or two, I'll have a house at East Legon. Is that the motivation to be in politics? Everywhere, TV. So they should go back, Senna, and then negotiate with the ministry items that are doable, that can be contained by the budget. The ministry must consider it, but they must not be under any pressure to do what they cannot sustain. Because we are building a country, we are not building a political party. Whatever negotiations you go to agree, you are binding the entire country. Let's do what is sustainable. If every nurse or doctor will leave, let them leave. We will die here. Nigerians will come and take over the country and they will manage it for us. But I can tell you that this country will survive.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon Owusu. And don't forget, we are live on Radio Gold 90.5 FM, and you are sending us some messages through Facebook. And the page is Pan-African Television. And this is Francis Gordon, who says, all workers in Ghana are important for national development. Those who clean up our streets daily are also health workers, and the conditions of their service should be taken care of. Therefore, the termination of Zoom Lion contract was in the right direction to help us improve the lives of those in that sector. Let's take care of our human resource in all sectors of the economy. Nurses are not different. There's Dede who points out that Kufuor did the same with the single spine salary structure. But Jamali says, Doc, with all due respect, your submission about infrastructure and human capital is below the belt. Every nation developed based on infrastructure first before human capital. Even as we speak now, there are so many graduates out there who are unemployed and jobless. What do you think is the reason? When President Mahama was building the E-blocks, what was the narration by then? The free SHS exposed it by the traffic system. So infrastructure is the beginning of job creation and employment. Please, let's be honest with ourselves and stop partisan policies. What GM did in 4 years, if Akufo-Addo was to do same, we would have been somewhere by now. Nasir Mohammed says a deliberate plan, this was a deliberate plan by the MPP to cripple the nation and the health service in particular and give the NDC government a bad name. This woman who only about a year ago was rather a government spokesperson against her own union, suddenly turns full circle and puts her union on strike. This will refuse to go on anti-Galamsey demo because people will die. All of a sudden, see nothing wrong with people dying. These are political leaders. There's Samuel James Aholu who says, Uncle Solu, thank you for your great submission. Always feel happy listening to you. Talk the truth. If we speak the truth, Ghana will move forward. Thank you, Solu, once again. Emmanuel Kujo Fojo Nyahe says, this guy is talking sense. Please tell them we all have to be honest to ourselves. You have a lot of more fire here. There's Nilate, there's Enochu also saying truth without mincing words. Solo, my fireman. Kwe Noel says, you think, okay, he's not happy. Says, you talk on TV, all this about nurses, but when they go on strike, you cry wolf. Charles Thompson says Solomon Owusu always speaks the truth to power when it comes to matters of national importance. Barbara Humenyi says this is the hard truth. David Domen says Solomon Owusu is best. I like your submissions. Keep it up.
Abusiana no see ya ena Uncle Kwesi Pratt Jr. Onso odi nedie ebewuram. Onso chiremu a Uncle Kwesi Pratt chiremu a. Sesiye ya Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association omakwale a year of striking. Obisa se 13th month allowance ya omopi. Okay, abayne si or the scan be mamo. Ye bisa se enkrofo na omo ahwe omo ama omo awu no obi agapade obi 31 year old a omo ahwe omo kra nkwa no sa nkrofo no omo betimi asande omo bankumu ana. We ye simple question Uncle Kwesi Pratt Jr. so ebisa. And it's in an Osha question Uncle Kwesi Pratt ebisa. It gives a lot of knowledge. Nyansa wo. What in a mecho na say nyansa wo pa nyansa wo. Enti men person make say bebe Uncle Kwesi Pratt and so acquizi. He quizzes the leader and the nurses, the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association no. Wa quizy omo wa bise omo questions efa sa nima we ho and how even nina happen. And even when 2024 omo sin kondwa it's enema edebe nsem eni film pie and way back in 2020 omo shase omo dia this de eba no edin eni film bae up to this extent omo akwale omo yes strike afi no makwale off. Uncle Kwesi Pratt ensem no so simple. Enti me pese me kasa ho bibre yenko na yento asa ansem no so eso yakoba yebeto aso yem platform so meso se document betum bra conversation ekoso no na wa like dwumade no wa share na foforo nye bia yakoba yede na kan na ebesan ato aso yem platform so yankopon koso a insiraw.
Why is that nurses with the same qualifications like these government nurses who work at private hospitals and herbal hospitals don't go on strike? Late President Mugabe did the same and sacked all striking nurses and brought student nurses to work. Enough of their bluff. That's James who sent that. There's Reverend Duff who says the way to solve this strike matters is not dishing out taxpayers' hard-earned money. The government to put all essential service sectors under the Ghana Army Remember, 37 hospital and police hospital never go on strike. This one is a good morning. Abdul Razak from Pig Farm says, good morning. How are you and the panelists doing? Tell Mr. Solo that he should keep the good work done. Abdul Razak sent that from Pig Farm. Thank you. Okay. Must call. Okay, Anthony Tufo and Obuasi once says, please ask Ghana must call all pensioners 60 to 70 years, 60 to 67 years. They stay at home. They are strong to work. Okay. He was asking that we should tend to pensioners. The nurses didn't take that kindly when the minister suggested that. Prosper Kalenji of Kasua says, why should they sit down with the nurses and their chairwoman doing this with the erstwhile government, and they couldn't implement a quarter of it, and that it will affect their campaign and election, so they could not do anything about it. Now government, within 5 months, you're expecting it to have its way of implementation. They should give us a break. That's Prosper who sent that. So those are some of the comments you are sending to us on the discussion we're having currently. This is the matter of all talk shows, Alaji and Alaji, live on Pan African Television, also live on Radio Gold 90.5 FM. Of course, we are live on our social media handles, Pan African Television, Facebook and YouTube. Mr. Pratt?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I think the point has to be made. And there's so many millions of Ghanaians who cannot make ends meet. There's so many Ghanaians who earn so very little. Indeed, up until recently, drivers of parliamentarians were complaining that their pay was below the legal minimum wage. That's parliament. There's some Ghanaians who are married and they have children. And at the end of the month, they take less than 500 Ghana cedis. This is the reality. This is the reality. And some of them do very essential work. Some of them provide security for our homes. Some of them are in charge of the kitchens in our homes and so on. So very crucial work. Now, even for some of our citizens who are engaged in fishing, the fishermen and so on, how much do they earn? So the problem of people not earning enough to be able to survive is not the exclusive problem of nurses. It's a national problem. And I think it's important for us to look at it from that angle. Look, if you take commercial drivers, they are crying. They've been crying for a long time. Talk to the taxi drivers. Talk to the trotro drivers. Talk to even the Uber drivers and so on. And when they tell you their stories, sometimes, if you are not very strong, tears come to your eyes. You see, these commercial drivers, many of them, when and if they are not able to make their daily sales, the car owners simply just take their cars and they become unemployed. So to avoid that situation, what they do is that they go to how do they call it? Money lenders and borrow money in order to be able to pay their daily sales. So many of them are living with huge debts and so on. So poor conditions of service, bad remuneration and so on is not an exclusive problem of nurses. It's a national problem that we have to look at. You understand? That's the first point I like to make. Now, over the last 1 week that these nurses have been on strike, we've heard very interesting and sometimes heart-wrenching stories. I saw on television, actually on Metro television, A woman was crying. She was crying. Why? Her brother, who only recently married, 31-year-old young man, had an asthma attack and was rushed to the hospital. The nurses refused to touch her. He died in their hands. Now, for all you know, this young man himself could be a victim of this neo-colonial, neoliberal national economy that we are running. But he died. He died. He died because government was not able to pay a 13th month allowance to nurses. He died. Then there's the story of a baby who was born in one of the hospitals. The placenta did not come out. There was no nurse to help. The mother died. Then I heard the story as told by mortuary attendants. I'm sure all of you heard them, saying that the numbers of people who were being taken to the mortuary, who were dying, was so much. One mortuary attendant said, "We haven't seen this before. So many people are dying." And I could go on and on with the stories. There was one particular story which was so very interesting. And I heard that story on Radio Gold's morning show, which you host, Senna. You host that, and you told the story. The story of a doctor who had to carry out surgery, very crucial surgery, on a midwife. And this doctor was not so clear as to whether he should do that crucial surgery or not. And so saying that, look, if I do the surgery and something goes wrong, and this midwife has to be catered for, there's no nurse. So this doctor then calls the midwife and says, look, this is the situation. I have to postpone the surgery on you until the strikes are over. And the midwife said, don't worry, I'm a midwife, I'll make special arrangements. My goodness. Yes, she could make special arrangements. She and her colleagues were on strike, but they could make special arrangements to cater for themselves. What about the Kayayi? What about the commercial drivers I just spoke about? Could they also make special arrangements to cater for their health needs? Obviously not. Now, Senna, the strikes are over, or at least they claim that they have suspended the strikes. They will get their 13th month salary. They will get most of the things they're asking for, if not all, and they will be backdated. You understand? Backdated to the time when the collective agreement was signed. The people who lost their lives, how are we going to revive them? How are we going to revive them? Today, Jesus is not walking through mortuaries to wake up the dead. He's not there. He did that in the past. 2,000 years ago, he walked and woke the dead and so on. I haven't seen that happen anymore. They are dead and gone forever. Maybe even their condition is better than those who have debilitating health conditions for the rest of their lives, because for a period of 24 hours, some condition could not be taken care of. Shouldn't we be thinking about all of this in the evaluation of this strike and its impact on our society. Shouldn't we? You see, the stories we heard were so many. So many. Now, one of the stories that I heard, and it killed me, the leadership or members of the leadership of the Ghana Registered Nurses Association.
Have some midwives in
Add it for me, no problem. Actually declared a strike. They declared a nationwide strike. And then they hopped onto aircrafts and left the country. Unbelievable. Yes, they have a right to strike. You understand? But you declare a strike as a bargaining to whatever, so that your employers can talk to you, so you can reach compromises, so you can press your demand. Now, when you declare the strike and you leave the jurisdiction, what are you saying? You are not interested in talking. You just want to inflict as much damage as possible. You don't want negotiations. They declared a strike and they left the country. Oh my God. That's what they did. Unbelievable. And you see, what is shocking is that they should have sent a clear message to their members that their leaders are not fighting for them. Because if you're my leader, and you declare a strike and you leave the country, how are we to make progress on the demands that we are making and so on? Unbelievable. But this is what they did. They declared the strike and they flew out. Amazing. They did it. But you see, Sana, look, the right to strike is a democratic right. It's a right which is enshrined in the 1992 Constitution.
Yes.
Indeed, strike is a weapon that workers use in order to improve their conditions of work and conditions of life. Legitimate right. But we are told by those who know the law and who interpret the law and who work with the law that the enjoyment of one's right must not interfere with the enjoyment of the rights of others. This is a principle. This is a principle which is upheld in all societies by all people and so on. So nurses have a right to strike. Every worker has a right to strike. We should defend that right to strike. But what about the right to life of the 31-year-old man, recently married 31-year-old man, who died as a result of the strike? How do we balance? How do we balance? Where are the caveats when it comes to the exercise of the right to strike? You understand? These are important questions that we need to ask. Now, we say that, nurses play a very important function in society. It is true. In fact, on this panel are two doctors. And the doctors sometimes tell us that they cannot perform without the nurses. Nurses are crucial. You understand? They are crucial not just in curing diseases, but also in preventing diseases. Nurses are so very important for every society and so on. But my goodness, the nurses, don't they need other professionals? The midwife, on whom surgery was to be performed, she needs others. Perhaps She needed an Uber driver to take her to the hospital for the surgery to be performed on her. When she woke up in the morning, she needed to eat. Which farmer grew the food? And so on. You understand? Medicines will be used on her. It is people in the pharmaceutical industry who may not be nurses who produce the medicines which will be used in performing the surgery on her. We are in the rainy season. She's going to work. She needs to be protected against the weather. She may use an umbrella. Are the umbrellas produced by nurses? Certainly not. If the roof over her house is leaking, a carpenter has to seal the leakage. That is not the job of nurses, and so on. So if all of us, including those who receive 300 cedis a month and 500 cedis a month and so on, go on strike, and our leaders leave the jurisdiction, they cannot be reached, no telephone call can reach them and so on, and behaved as the nurses behaved, what kind of society would we have? These are questions we should be asking ourselves. What kind of society would we have if all of us were to behave this way? President John Dramani Mahama has come and is pushing what he calls the reset agenda. Part of his reset agenda is that some people should no longer be taking ex gratia awards. Now what if these people who take ex gratia awards also come and say, what? How can you reduce, what has been provided us since 1991? We're also going to go on strike. What then happens? And so on. Now, another interesting dimension of this strike action is simply the fact that it was declared illegal. Illegal. Because there are procedures for embarking upon strike. There are things that we have to do in order to make strike actions legal. The Constitution provides for the right to strike, but there's so many caveats also. Now this strike was declared illegal. The nurses said, go to hell with the law. And the moment they said, go to hell with the law, they lost their right to enjoy the right to strike. Because the right to strike itself is provided for by the law. So if you don't respect the law, how do you then enjoy the right to strike? And indeed, the press conference they held yesterday, interesting. The press conference they held yesterday, what they told us was that they were suspending the strike action because they've met the Parliamentary Select Committee on Health and so on. Not that they were abiding by the law. Significant. Not that they were abiding by the law. And when the court decision was made known to them, what was their reaction? We are going to meet our members and we'll meet our lawyers first. Who said that when courts make pronouncements, we can refuse to abide by the pronouncements of the courts because we haven't met our family members and work colleagues and lawyers? Who told them that? You know? And they're worried. They are very worried about misrepresentation, disinformation, politicization, and so on. They commented a lot about that. What about them? The authorities came to you and said, look, we appreciate the difficulties we are going through. We have a crisis. We are running an IMF program, which I don't support anyway. You understand? There are so many conditions that we have to meet and so on. So please bear with us. What motives did they ascribe to the authorities? What motives did they ascribe to the authorities? Were they sometimes not engage in the misrepresentation that we're accusing others of engaging in. And if they could engage in misrepresentation and so on, what about the rest of us in the society? You see? They were told that, well, the budget was prepared and this would mean that things in the budget have to be varied and so on. And it is not possible immediately. They said, no, we won't agree. Meanwhile, when the collective bargaining agreement was signed, which gave them all these allowances, some of which I've never heard in my life before, funeral allowance and so on, Master, where is that coming from? But okay, no problem. I mean, whatever you use to increase your pay, you know, putogumu, frigumu, nina, the same. So no problem, I'm not going to complain. But then they came back and accused government of bad faith. On what basis? When the collective bargaining agreement was signed, a section of the nurses, psychiatric nurses, went to court complaining that their own grievances had not been factored in by their leaders, that their leaders were discriminating against them, that the practices that their leaders were using in the negotiations were undemocratic. So even within the nursing fraternity, some nurses had problems with those leaders who declared the strike, accusing them of being undemocratic, accusing them of ignoring their conditions and so on. Now this matter lasted until February. The collective bargaining agreement could not be implemented until February. President Dramani Mahama and Atufosin and so on, they were not in office. When all this was going on, they were not in office. The matter appears to have finally been resolved in February. That is the claim. But if you look at the strike and so on, it is clear that the matters were not resolved. Because it is not all nurses who supported the strike action. There were some nursing associations who refused to join because they thought that we were getting a raw deal from the Ghana registered Midwives and Nurses Association, whatever it is called. Okay? So there were some who were still felt aggrieved and so on. Okay. Now, so in February, when finally the court matters were resolved somehow, we then needed to have a roadmap for the implementation of the collective bargaining agreement. February. The government had taken office on January 7th. And there were all kinds of problems with the transition. The government took office without a budget. There were only some provisional estimates which would enable the government to function for a while and so on. Nurses said they be that. That as for them, they don't see the difference between previous governments and current governments. And that once you get into government, you take over the full responsibility of your predecessor. That was the argument they put forward. Now this argument ignored the fact that the transition to a new government comes with difficulties, comes with problems, which all of us must bear. But they ignored it. They wanted to have their pound of flesh. Okay? I try to read the Bible sometimes.
Really?
Yes. I try. There are many reasons for reading the Bible. And in fact, I recommend very strongly that everybody, if you can find time, read the Bible. Because it's a book which has been used for all kinds of purposes. Used to deceive, used to cheat, used to justify everything. So sometimes, let's read the Bible. It helps us all, you understand? And as I was growing up, there's a story which was constantly told in the churches. The story of I think it is not a religious story, but it has been told in the churches. I'm sure all of you have heard that story in the churches and so on. The story about somebody who was demanding his pound of flesh. You remember? Merchants of Venice. Thank you. Demanding his pound of flesh. Hey, this man will not budge. He wanted his pound of flesh. Okay, here is a knife. Take your pound of flesh, but make sure that no blood drops. I'm sure you've heard this story.
Yeah.
And there are many stories also in the Bible and so on, which are similar to this story, which is told in the Merchant of Venice. So, okay, you want your 13th month allowance, 13th month pay, take it. You want your funeral allowance, take it. Whatever you want, take it. But make sure that nobody dies as a result of your actions. I mean, incredible what has happened. But, like my brother here, I like to take a very broad picture. The nurses have gone on strike because of these demands and so on. Now, what the nurses are demanding, there are millions of Ghanaian workers who also feel entitled to the same conditions that the nurses want for themselves. So, tomorrow, now they've met the Parliamentary Select Committee on Health, some concessions will be made and so on, they will be paid. Don't forget that as soon as they are paid, other categories of workers say, you are paying this to nurses, stand well, we are coming. So now, architects working with government also come and say, what? You have to pay our annual licensing fees for us. It will be legitimate because you've granted it to some others. Then doctors working for government come and say, we too. And then lawyers working for government say, we too. And then surveyors working for government come and say, we too. And on and on and on. And then drivers come and say, yes, we too will renew our license, our driving license, you have to pay for us. Whoa. Everybody comes. My goodness.
As for the drivers, it's the MPs that are doing it for them.
Well, but that's MP matter. What do you think is going to happen? This country will crash to the ground. Okay. Now, there's only one way of avoiding that. And that one way of avoiding that is for government to be just open, transparent with workers' organizations. Indeed, it is time to involve the organizations of working people in running government. There is no reason why the leaders of organized labor, when government is drawing up its budget, cannot sit at the table with government. How much money have we made this year? We've made so much. How do we allocate the money that we have made? And this is not a decision by government. It's a collective decision by representatives of the working people and government together. The government and working people's organization must begin to work together. It's an imperative. If it doesn't happen, this country will collapse. The TUC must be consulted on all important national issues. The Ghana National Association of Teachers must be consulted, must become an important stakeholder in all the decisions that government would make. All the important decisions that government will make. You understand? LAGRAT, University Teachers Association and so on, nurses, the Doctors Association and so on, we have to create a forum which enables them to participate in these important decisions so that they can see for themselves, feely, gani, what the issues are, what the facts are, and so on. They must be involved in making those decisions in order to avert unnecessary, painful labor actions. Look, no matter what you say, whether you like it or not, the reality is that petroleum prices have fallen significantly over the last 4 months. Significantly. I mean, from 17 cedis per liter to 12 cedis per liter is no small fall in prices. And that everybody knows, we all feel it. The government statistician says that inflation is dropping and has been dropping consistently over the last 4 months. The cedi is gathering strength over the last 4 months and so on. Some of the things that we used to see, the opulent display of wealth in government and so on, we no longer see on that scale. There's still some, but it's not on that scale. I mean there's still some. I'm still driving to work in the morning, and so many four-wheel drives with sirens pushing us off the road and so on. It is not different from what happened under the Akufo-Addo administration. Who are these people with sirens? So many of them pushing us off the road and so on. What is this stupid arrogance which is still being displayed? So I know that some of it is still there. You understand? But at least it has reduced. You know that. It has reduced.
Not bad. This guy, this A+ says that he now understands why the sirens, you know, and respectfully, I don't intend to cut you, but
you can cut me, no problem.
I'm pleading. There are some days that you have to be at 4 critical events. 4 critical events, and you know, even in government, sometimes a chairman is supposed to sign a certain document, and you're supposed to be there not by virtue of you wanting to be there, but by virtue of the fact that for government work to begin. So sometimes, respectfully, they are not going to buy wache. Let me put it that way.
Sometimes they're going to buy wache.
I agree with you sometimes. And other times it's worse.
I'll give you my own example. You see this road from Jimpa.
That back.
Yes, who passes Fiesta Royal and joins the traffic light. In the morning, I'm going to work. All of us are going to work. All of us are struggling. There's so much traffic. Then some car, with siren and so on, you know, then pushes us off the road and so on. I peep into the car, and his children going to school. What check are those children going to say?
No, that's
there is abuse.
Some of them.
And besides, the legal position is that there are no more than 4 people in this country who are entitled to sirens. That's the legal position.
Yeah, well, it hasn't been amended. That's right.
Yes. So those who are doing that know that they are behaving illegally.
So
and they should be stopped.
You conduct a citizen.
Every police car with a siren uses it. Are all police people on emergency? Every military car with a siren uses it. Are they on emergency? Stop troubling us. It must stop. That is immodest. That's arrogant misbehavior which must stop immediately. So there's still some of that. And other practices which smack of arrogance, impudence.
Or using a car without a license plate.
Yes.
Which must all stop. You know? But the point I'm making is that we've come to the point.
Alright, abusia enti we ensema etimi akoso and media me submission kakra bi an wo fa asem we hu so simple. Kakra me kan say Ghana ye wo sisi no. Even before that, the breaking news be abakra was nka me kan first before senka me this video we ebebramo. Donald Trump assign aka ne ho bio na Ghana sisi de ye ka omo countries, African countries wa ban ne omo so mo sini kurom sisi Ghana for ye ka ho, but osi ukita PhD ukita degree na bibisa na odi obetimi aba. You see, answer American nurses no ehun nsem kakra no momeye sua ade kakra. Emre bi me begina hanom kai. Me betena platform we so. Bra Donald Trump ka say so early this month, that was 28 February or 12 February or so. I stand to be corrected. And Donald Trump ka say what we need papers. Uni legit papers. Uni nkrata wo US bia no. Omodo beba. And I'm bet na hanom. And I'm catch the Ghana for nyina and it will be bia no hwe me say me. Say Donald Trump the policy we all the abanmani je ho. But mama yen jubilate bebre because Ghana adia Donald Trump na adwene osi adwempa odeye. I mean broni beka the motive behind the secret behind any say opesa African leaders no esua se binyansa kakra opesa countries na omo developing countries afei na omo develop oman no opesa omo nsua nyansa kakra opesa omo nso ensha ase nsua bibi enye den emfa develop omo man na omo nja se omo sori ya na omo ekwajo omo ho ayarhwe e US o mbreko a enka omo invest e omo man mu a enka omo betimi enya that good and I mean accessible health facilities ni bi e wo mo krom enti enemity say Donald Trump say hey say memmo bi ansi mi krom Ghana for so mo ka ho bi ena me yam hye me say hey adu ho hey there will be a timer na say Donald Trump we okoso why president let me tell you one thing even anyo no kwa na ye president obeye mra to ho say yan ye mra nko ade a na chese asem ne ya say African leader BNC krom so obepe bosia African leader BNC krom say obi seeking for health I mean assistance what na me chona say me pesa abrofo no nyane sa me pesa sisi abrofo no etena se no mumia bibifo no no muma abibifo no hu se sebi onso develop o manya ebeboa sebi onso usika na wo de ko for I mean western world investing e wo honom koto tofie koto ta adan no wodi bi ebewura wo economy mu a ebema wo economy na gina brane what na me chona say sika na ye spend ye kwaji ani ye kwesi and all those kind of things no say yenso this is the time I was say ye consider abusiafo Donald Trump ade a oye no me mega manije ho and ye me de pa say sisi wo hu say Africans ye ni serious on chance emfa serious restrictions into Africans so because Africa is the most I mean most unserious country among all the continents. Africa is the most non-serious I mean continent among all the continents. Yeah, you serious. You paying for fashion home. You paying for a year the omupebiano because they think say Western part they develop it into more area. Any second of that yeah can where I America home na kame bomba ese kaduna Trump beka say baby adri die wo omape wache enti wankasa sori ko mame mepa wo nanka odi kilo frata bisi Ghana say sometime they are prosecuting no. It is the high time I want say African leaders must think about Africans. This is the time African leaders must think about Africans. I mean development. No munja selfish interest. Ye ko Dubai, ye ko Canada, ye ko Australia, ye ko hwan ye ina eye nijie keke. But thinking about Africa, say ye bani ye be develop Africa ni di omukwa say any India na wo no mo gya no no mo be sin bisi Ghana, mo se bisi Zimbabwe, mo se bisi la Côte d'Ivoire. Enti ayemide say Donald Trump or this umbrella register Ghana Registered Nurses Association say ko no mo wuni na no omo bo mutiri so say maba aban diska na mamwa mudi asankofo na mo hwe mo wuni na mo bo mutiri so mamo nye insensitive as if say munye nipa anye din abewu nipa ho nye din abewu edin na ye gine wasase wi so and ultimate ye so insensitive sa and we so I mean okay less about human health enti mo ye nipa wu ye mo atom Buye ya nipa ne ekra ehwiri mu atom ana mojo mu hwegu ye mu atom. It is sad. It is shame on you. Shame on you. I mean, him say strike. I'm calling off. They still be on strike till. But money in term mobile call it on mobile call off the strike. And I'm sure many pay you. Meanwhile, Munsanya Kamo, Munyama Mope. It is a shame. Yanko Ponchao. Bye bye. Hanum a number authentic platform. Subscribe if I comment to like, share, now for in your behavior. Bye bye.